Live from the BDN Studios, it's Bang and Dang.
That's awesome.
If you don't like that, then
You ain't black.
Welcome back to Battles of American Civil War with Bang and Dang, and we've made it to the last big battle of 1863. I think the last big battle of the war in terms of craziness and body counts. Obviously, there's more significant battles and stuff like that, but this Chickamauga is some pretty gory stuff, apparently. I don't even really know much about it, to be honest with you.
It's rarely talked about.
It's one of those, pushed under the rug type of battles. Fought September 18th to the 20th, 1863. Marked the end of a Union offensive, which was the Chickamauga Campaign in southeastern Tennessee and northwestern Georgia.
Georgia?
Was the first major battle of the war fought in Georgia, the most significant Union defeat in the Western Theater, and involved the second highest number of casualties behind Gettysburg. Damn, dude. Just a couple months apart. In a successful Tullahoma campaign in the summer of 1863, Rosecrans moved southeast from Murfreesboro, Tennessee, outmaneuvering Bragg and forcing him to abandon Middle Tennessee and withdraw to the city of Chattanooga, which we just had last episode. Suffering only 569 Union casualties along the way.
Look at that. He thought he was doing something. He's like, look at us, mofos. General-in-Chief Major General Henry Halleck and President Lincoln, they were insistent that Rosecrans move quickly to Chattanooga. Said, don't slow down. You see what Meade did. He sucks. Seizing the city would open the door for Union advance toward Atlanta in the heartland of the South. Chattanooga was a vital rail hub with lines going north toward Nashville and Knoxville and southward towards Atlanta. It was an important manufacturing center for the production of iron and cocaine. No, coke. Coke. It's like a...
Isn't that weird?
Different type of charcoal.
Why does this always happen? We have not had that anything mentioned about coke in any of our other battles, and then we just did the Industrial Revolution episode, and now it's
look at
coke.
It's
here.
like Google search when you say something.
Right.
This is located on Navajo, Tennessee River. The production of the
Chattanooga,
iron and coke, situated between Lookout Mountain and Missionary Ridge, Raccoon Mountain, and also Stringer's Ridge. Chattanooga occupied an important defensible position, I would say.
Although Bragg's Army of Tennessee had about 52,000 men at the end of July, the Confederate government merged the Department of East Tennessee under Major General Simon Buckner into Bragg's Department of the Tennessee, which added another 17,800, which had his overall total of 69,800.
Probably the second biggest army compared to Lee's.
The big ones, yeah. But it also extended his command responsibilities northward to the Knoxville area. This brought a third subordinate into Bragg's command who had little or no respect for him. We already know what happens here. Lieutenant General Leonidas Polk and Major General William Hardee had already made their animosity known.
Yep.
Buckner's attitude was colored by Bragg's unsuccessful invasion of Buckner's native Kentucky in 1862, as well as by the loss of his command through the merger.
It's true.
Look at it.
Very true.
Can't get along.
Well, there was a positive aspect for Bragg, was Hardee's request to be transferred to Mississippi in July. But he was replaced by Lieutenant General D.H. Hill, a general who did not get along with Robert E. Lee in Virginia. Yeah, they didn't get along very well. They needed to be separated. You know what I mean?
Robert E. Lee's like, we can only have one Hill, and it's going to be AP.
Right, mofo. The Confederate War Department asked Bragg in early August whether he could assume the offensive against Rosecrans if he were given reinforcements from Mississippi. He demurred, concerned about the daunting geographical obstacles and logistical challenges, preferring to wait for Rosecrans to solve those same problems and attack him. He's like, let that dude.
He'll be tired and
All right.
He was also concerned about a sizable Union force under Major General Ambrose Burnside that was threatening Knoxville.
Which was true.
Bragg withdrew his forces from advanced positions around Bridgeport, which left Rosecrans free to maneuver on the northern side of the Tennessee River. He concentrated his 2 infantry corps around Chattanooga and relied upon cavalry to cover his flanks extending from northern Alabama to near Knoxville. The Confederate government decided to attempt a strategic reversal in the west by sending Bragg reinforcements from Virginia, which had Lieutenant General James Longstreet with 2 divisions from his 1st Corps Army in Northern Virginia, in addition to the reinforcements from Mississippi.
Look at that. Breaking up the band.
I know, right?
Chickamauga was the very first large-scale Confederate movement of the troops from one theater to another, with the aim of achieving a period of numerical superiority and gaining decisive results. Bragg was now more satisfied with resources provided and looked to strike the Union Army as soon as he achieved the strength he needed. He's like, all right, now you're talking.
Right. The campaign and major battle take their name from the West Chickamauga Creek, popular histories, it is often said that Chickamauga is a Cherokee word meaning river of death.
Oh.
Peter Cozzens, author of This Terrible Sound, wrote that this is a loose translation. Glenn Tucker presents the translations of stagnant water from the lower Cherokee tongue and good country from the Chickasaw and river of death, which was a dialect of the upcountry Cherokee. Okay. Tucker claims that the River of Death came by its name not from early warfare, but from the location that the Cherokee contracted smallpox. And that could be it, too. Right?
Yeah. James Mooney, he wrote in The Myths of the Cherokee, Chickamauga is the more common spelling for Chickamauga, a name that has no meaning in their language and is possibly derived from an Algonquin word referring to a fishing or fish spearing place. If not Shahano, it probably from the Creek of Chickasaw. From the Creek or Chickasaw.
Creek Indians, Chickasaw. It's from somewhere. It's an Indian name, clearly.
The most plausible etymology for Chickamauga is that it is from the Chickasaw word chakma, be good, plus the verb ending in ka.
Chakmaka.
Chakmaka. The Chickasaw town of Chickamauga was located at the foot of Lookout Mountain.
All right. Well, why do they... These articles are weird. When do we ever get the backstory on the damn names?
I know, they give themselves weird names like that, but when they go like a mountain, they go, that's a Lookout Mountain.
Lookout the mountain. Right? Or Barks at Moon.
Barks. Yeah. Pisses at midnight.
Peas when drunk. Rosecrans faced significant logistical challenge if he chose to move forward. The Cumberland Plateau that separated the armies was a rugged, barren country over 30 miles long with poor roads and little opportunity for foraging.
Yeah, rough.
If Bragg attacked him during the advance, Rosecrans would be forced to fight with his back against the mountains and tedious supply lines.
Yeah, that's rough, too.
He did not have the luxury of staying put, however, because he was under intense pressure from Washington to move forward in conjunction with Burnside's advance into East Tennessee.
Oh.
So either way, he's screwed. See, right here, it's a foreshadowing of our already.
Damn right. By early August, Halleck was frustrated enough with Rosecrans' delay that he ordered him to move forward immediately and to report daily the movement of each corps until he crossed the Tennessee River. Damn, this dude wants daily reports.
That's tired-ass messengers.
You ain't kidding. Rosecrans was outraged at the tone of the recklessness, conceit, and malice of Halleck's order. And I would be like, this motherfucker.
Got a little bit too big for the britches because Gettysburg and Vicksburg, man.
This dude's sitting in D.C., drinking tea, and he's going to tell me.
Damn.
Out here in the field.
This old rich man north of Richmond.
Right. Some bitch. And he insisted that he would be courting disaster if he were not permitted to delay his advance until at least August 17th. He's like, you guys don't get it. It's necessary to accumulate enough supplies and transport wagons that he could cross a long distances without a reliable line of communication. Yeah, he ain't stupid.
Well, his subordinate generals are supportive of this line of reasoning and counseled delay, except for Brigadier General James Garfield, future president, who was Rosecrans' chief of staff. He was a politician who understood the value of being on the record, endorsing the Lincoln administration's priorities, of course. It was all for, political shit, dude. Yeah. The plan for the Union advance was to cross the Cumberland Plateau into the valley of the Tennessee River, pause briefly to accumulate some supplies, and then cross the river.
Right.
As opposed to crossing of the wide river... An opposed crossing of the wide river was not feasible, so Rosecrans devised a deception to distract Bragg above Chattanooga while the army crossed downstream. You got to do something, right? No, from there, the army would advance on a wide front through the mountains. The 21st Corps under Major General Thomas L. Crittenden would advance against the city from the west. The 14th Corps under Major General George Thomas would cross over Lookout Mountain 20 miles south of the city, while the 20th Corps under Major General Alexander McCook and the Cavalry Corps under Major General David Stanley, they would advance even farther to the southeast towards Bragg's railroad supply line leading from Atlanta. Dang, these guys are going way out of the way. You got to, though. If executed correctly, this plan would cause Bragg to evacuate Chattanooga or be trapped in the city without supplies. Rosecrans...
they had a plan.
Well,
Rosecrans had the plans.
Rosecrans ordered his army to move on August 16th. The difficult road conditions meant a full week passed before they reached the Tennessee River Valley. They encamped while engineers made preparations for crossing the river. Meanwhile, Rosecrans' deception plan was underway. Colonel John Wilder of the 14th Corps moved his mounted infantry brigade, which was the Lightning Brigade, to the north of Chattanooga. His men pounded on tubs and sawed boards, sending pieces of wood downstream to make the Confederates think that rafts are being constructed for a crossing north of the city. Look at these guys, huh?
I mean, come on. Any smart person would be like, they're just let this valuable piece of lumber go.
Oh, like scraps, I'm sure.
I guess, yeah.
Or you could just, like, send somebody to go look out. Like, are they building rafts or what?
Right. His artillery, commanded by Captain Eli Lilly, they bombarded the city from Stringer's Ridge for 2 weeks. An operation sometimes known as the Second Battle of Chattanooga. This deception worked, and Bragg was convinced that the Union crossing would be above the city. In conjunction with Burnside's advancing Army of the Ohio from Knoxville. He's like, Burnside's coming from north. They got to be coming from there, meeting up. The first crossing of the Tennessee River was accomplished by the 20th Corps of at Caperton's Ferry. 4 miles from Stevenson on 29th of August, 1863, where construction began on a 1,250-foot pontoon bridge. The second crossing of the 14th Corps was at the Shell Mound, Tennessee. On the August 30th. Do you think any of those pontoon bridges are surviving?
No. I'm sure they
washed away.
Took them down. If they were smart, anyways.
Right.
They were quickly followed by most of the 21st Corps. The fourth crossing site was at the mouth of Battle Creek, Tennessee, where the rest of the 14th Corps crossed on August 31st.
Oh.
Without permanent bridges, the Army of the Cumberland could not be supplied reliably, so another bridge was constructed at Bridgeport by Major General Philip Sheridan's division, spanning 2,700 feet in 3 days.
Good thinking, Sheridan.
Virtually all the Union Army, other than elements of the Reserve Corps, kept behind to guard the railroad.
Why not?
And then they had safely crossed the river by September 4th. They faced more mountainous terrain and road networks that were just as treacherous as the ones they had already traversed.
Come on. What do you think it was going to be? The Confederate High Command was concerned about this development and took steps to reinforce the Army of Tennessee. General Joseph Johnston's army dispatched on loan 2 weak divisions, about 9,000 men, from Mississippi. Right, and that was Major General John Breckinridge and Major General William H.T. Walker. He did that by September 4th, 1863. Then General Lee dispatched a corps under Lieutenant James Longstreet from Northern Virginia Army, and only 5 brigades, about 5,000 effectives from 2 of Longstreet's division arrived in time for the second day of battle at Chickamauga on the September 20th. You think Longstreet was with the one that arrived?
That didn't arrive?
I bet he was. He stayed back. I bet.
Maybe. Are the general guys usually in the front? Or are they probably in the middle somewhere, right?
I would say.
Something. The 3 Infantry Corps of Rosecrans' Army advanced by separate routes on the only 3 roads that were suitable for such movement. On the right flank, McCook's 20th Corps moved southwest to Valley Head, Alabama. In the center, Thomas's 14th Corps moved just across the border to Trenton, Georgia. And on the left, Crittenden's 21st Corps moved directly towards Chattanooga around Lookout Mountain. September 8th, after learning that Rosecrans had crossed into his rear, Bragg evacuated Chattanooga and moved his army south along the Lafayette Road toward Lafayette, Georgia. The Union Army occupied Chattanooga on September 9th.
Oh, shit. Look at that.
Got it.
Rosecrans telegraphed Halleck, Chattanooga is ours, without a struggle, and East Tennessee is free.
Nice.
Bragg was aware of Rosecrans' dispositions and planned to defeat him by attacking his isolated corps individually. The corps were spread about 40 miles apart, too far apart to support each other with any type of conflict.
Well, idiots.
Rosecrans was convinced that Bragg was demoralized and fleeing to either Dalton, Rome, or Atlanta. That's all in Georgia. Instead, Bragg's Army of Tennessee was encamped at Lafayette, about 20 miles south of Chattanooga. Confederate soldiers who posed as deserters deliberately added to this impression. Right.
Look at these guys, huh? Thomas firmly cautioned Rosecrans that a pursuit of Bragg was unwise because the Army of the Cumberland was too widely dispersed and its supply lines were tenuous. Tenuous? Rosecrans, exultant at his success in capturing Chattanooga, discounted Thomas's advice.
Right. He's on a high right now.
Right. He's like, I'm about to do some big thing. You know, we had Grant at Vicksburg.
Right.
The other guy at who was it?
Who was that? It was Meade, right?
No. Yeah, Meade at the kind of like he took over.
Gettysburg?
Yeah. And then he's like, I got me at Chattanooga, baby.
Yeah.
He ordered McCook to swing across Lookout Mountain at Winston's Gap and use his cavalry to break Bragg's railroad supply line at Resaca, Georgia. Crittenden was to take Chattanooga and then turn south in pursuit of Bragg. Thomas was to continue his advance towards Lafayette. Ooh, Thomas, you're about to run into some shit.
Yeah. Thomas's Lee Division under Major General James Negley intended to cross McLemore's Cove and use Dug Gap in the Pigeon Mountain to reach Lafayette. Negley was 12 hours ahead of Brigadier General Absalom Bayard's division, the nearest reinforcements.
Wow.
Braxton Bragg hoped to track Negley by attacking through the cove from the northeast, forcing the Union division to its destruction at the cul-de-sac at the southwest end of the valley. Yeah, they can't go anywhere. They'd be screwed.
Early on the morning of September 10th, Bragg ordered Polk's division under Major General Thomas Hinman to march 13 miles southwest into the cove and strike Negley's flank. He also ordered D.H. Hill to send Claiborne's division from Lafayette through Dug Gap to strike Negley's front, making sure the movement was coordinated with Hinman's.
Oh, shit.
Dude, Negley, freaking out of there, man.
That's like a mob hit. Entering the cove with 4,600 men, Negley's division encountered Confederate skirmishers, but pressed forward to Davis's Crossroads. Informed there was a large Confederate force approaching on his left. Negley took up a position in the mouth of the cove and remained there until 3 a.m., September 11th, 1863. Hill claimed that Bragg's orders reached him very late and began offering excuses for why he could not advance. I think he's still pissed off that he got shipped off over here. Claiborne was sick in bed, and the road through Dug Gap was obstructed by felled timber.
This is what Hill's excuses.
Right.
He then advised calling off the operation. Hinman, who had executed Bragg's orders promptly and had advanced within 4 miles of Negley's division, became overly cautious when he realized that Hill would not be attacking on schedule and ordered his men to stop.
Dude, I would too.
Bragg reinforced Hinman with 2 divisions of Buckner's corps, which were encamped near Lee and Gordon's Mill. When Buckner reached Hinman at 5 p.m. on September 10th, the Confederates outnumbered Negley's division 3-1, but failed to attack.
Yeah, they're still kind of funky. Infuriated that his orders were being defied and a golden opportunity was lost, Bragg issued new orders for Hinman to attack early September 11th. Claiborne, who was not sick, as Hill had claimed, cleared the felled timber from Dug Gap and prepared to advance when he heard the sound of Hinman's guns. By this time, however...
Is Hill the one that felled the timber?
Right. Dude, this dude needs to be dealt with.
Right.
By this time, however, Bayard's division had reached Negley's. Negley had withdrawn his division to a defensive position just east of the crossroads. The 2 Union divisions then withdrew to Stevens Gap. Hinman's men skirmished with Bayard's rear guard, but they could not prevent the withdrawal of the Union force.
It's still there. Realizing that part of his force had narrowly escaped a Confederate trap, Rosecrans abandoned his plans for pursuit and began to concentrate his scattered forces. Well, if only you would have listened, Rosecrans. Right. As he wrote in his official report, it was a quote-unquote matter of life and death.
Yeah, if Hill would have done what he was supposed to do, you guys would have been dead.
Right. Or even when...
Shit.
What's his name got there? They
right.
were outnumbered 3-1 still. September 12th, he ordered McCook and the cavalry to move northeast to Stevens Gap to join with Thomas, intending for this combined force to continue northeast to link up with Crittenden. The message to McCook took a full day to reach him at Alpine, and the route he selected to move northeast required 3 days of marching 57 miles.
Holy shit.
Retracing his steps over Lookout Mountain that he had just came.
My goodness, dude.
No. I thought the ignorance was over.
Right. Crittenden's corps began moving from the Ringgold toward Lee and Gordon's Mill. Forrest's cavalry reported the movement across the Confederate front, and Bragg saw another offensive opportunity, and he ordered Lieutenant General Leonidas Polk to attack Crittenden's lead division under Brigadier General Thomas Wood at dawn on September 13th with Polk's corps and Walker's corps. He wanted them to attack with those 2 corps. Bragg rode to the scene after hearing no sound of battle and found that there were no preparations being made to attack.
Dude, both of these sides.
Oh my gosh.
Dude, both of these sides just suck.
Once again, Bragg was angry that one of his subordinates did not attack as ordered. But by the morning, it was too late, and all Crittenden's corps had passed by and concentrated at Lee and Gordon's Mill. Dude.
For the next 4 days, both armies attempted to improve their dispositions. Rosecrans continued to concentrate his forces, intending to withdraw as a single body to Chattanooga. Bragg, learning of McCook's movement at Alpine, feared the Federals might be planning a double envelopment. At a council of war on September 15th, Bragg's corps commanders agreed that an offensive in the direction of Chattanooga offered their best option. They said, we're going back to Chattanooga, boys. Or at least to the direction.
Now they wanted it. By September 16th, McCook's corps had reached Stevens Gap, and the 3 Union corps were now much less vulnerable to individual defeat.
Dude,
yeah.
The Confederates ruined their chance. Wow.
Yep. But Bragg decided that he still had an opportunity. reinforced with 2 divisions arriving from Virginia under Lieutenant James Longstreet. And Longstreet's definitely going to either take over or he'll do what Bragg says.
Right.
Under General Longstreet, and a division from Mississippi under a Brigadier General Bushrod Johnson.
Bushrod.
He decided to move his army northward on the morning of the 18th of September and advance towards Chattanooga. It was forcing Rosecrans' army out to fight or to withdraw. He was like, we're going to bring it right to these motherfuckers.
One way or another, something's going to happen.
Longstreet's like, look, I just had a long way here. We're just going to go in and see what happens. And Bragg's like, all right.
He's like, I know that street was long, man.
He's like, all right, we do that.
If Rosecrans fought, he risked being driven back into McLemore's Cove. The Confederate Army was to move beyond the Federal left flank at Lee and Gordon's Mill and then cross West Chickamauga Creek. He specified 4 crossing points, did Bragg. They go from north to south. Johnson's division at Reed's Bridge, Walker's Reserve Corps at Alexander's Bridge, Buckner's Corps at Thedford's Ford, and Polk's Corps at Dalton's Ford. Hill's Corps would anchor the Army's left flank, and the cavalry under Forrest and Wheeler would cover Bragg's right and left flanks, respectively.
Damn right.
All right, look at it all worked out, huh?
Right. The Union Army of the Cumberland, commanded by Rosecrans, consisted of about 60,000 men.
Jeez.
Composed of the following major organizations. 14th Corps, commanded by Major General George Thomas. They had 22,781 present for duty. We had Brigadier Commanders Epsom Bayard, Major General James Nagley, Brigadier General John Brannan, and Major General Joseph Reynolds with him. 20th Corps, commanded by...
the brother of John Reynolds that just got killed?
It's very possible.
In like Gettysburg or something?
Maybe. The 20th Corps, commanded by Major General Alexander McCook, had 13,156 men. And he had Brigadier General Jefferson C. Davis, and the Union.
Man, it's the first time we've had him.
I bet he got teased a lot.
Well, he's actually pretty decent in the battles we've seen him in.
Brigadier General, he might be a good fighter, but I bet he gets teased.
That's true.
Hey, President Davis.
Right.
Hey, Mr. President.
They call him Prez.
Yeah, call him Prez. Brigadier General Richard Johnson.
This is the guy. We haven't heard his name in a while.
And
dude's name is quite literally Dick Johnson.
Right.
Johnson. Dick.
Right, Dick. All right. And Major General Philip Sheridan.
Philip Sheridan, huh?
Well, his middle name's Winker.
Richard Winker Johnson. These McCook guys.
Weiner. Richard
Right.
Weiner.
These McCook guys, there was like 13 of them in the Union.
Right.
Literally. Sons, dads, nephews and shit. And like 7 of them died, dude.
Right.
Crazy.
That's actually pretty good.
Well, no, it's half of them.
Right. You were expecting that.
I guess. They had the 21st Corps commanded by Major General Thomas Crittenden with 14,660 present, with Division Commanders Brigadier General Thomas J. Wood, Major General John Palmer, and Brigadier General Horatio Van Cleve. They had a Reserve Corps commanded by Major General Gordon Granger, with 7,372 present, with 1 division commanded by Brigadier General James Steedman, and an attached brigade of Daniel McCook, Colonel Daniel McCook. Cavalry Corps commanded by Brigadier General Robert B. Mitchell. He had 10,078 present, with Division Commanders Brigadier General George Crook and Colonel Edward M. McCook. Dude, this is the McCook show.
Right.
Ridiculous.
Moving on to the old Rebs. Army of Tennessee, commanded by, obviously, Bragg. He had 65,000 men, composed of the following organizations. The right wing, commanded by Lieutenant General Polk, contained divisions of Major General Benjamin Cheatham, Hill's Corps under Lieutenant General D.H. Hill. It was a division of Major General Patrick Claiborne and John Breckinridge's. Reserve Corps under Major General William H.T. Walker, which was divisions of Brigadier General States Rights Gist and St. John R. Liddell.
States Rights. We haven't heard that name in a while. The left wing, commanded by Lieutenant General James Longstreet, contained a division of Major General Thomas Hinman. Buckner's Corps of Major General Simon Buckner, which had divisions of Major General Alexander Stewart and Brigadier Generals William Preston and Bushrod Johnson. Plus, you had Longstreet's Corps, commanded by Major General John Bell Hood.
I haven't heard him in a while.
Nope, and with divisions of Major Generals Lafayette, McLaws, and Hood.
Yeah. That's not the same Hood from the north, guys. There's a Hood in the north.
No, obviously, but John Bell Hood is the only one that you really hear of.
Right.
And McLaws, we haven't seen this guy in a while either.
No.
A cavalry corps commanded by Major General Joseph Wheeler contained the divisions of Brigadier Generals John Wharton and William Martin.
Yeah, they weren't getting Jeb Stuart away from
Of course
Lee.
not.
A 2nd Cavalry Corps, commanded by Brigadier General Nathan Bedford Forrest, contained the divisions of Brigadier Generals Frank Armstrong and John Pegram. The organization of the Army of Tennessee into wings was ordered through the night of 19th of September upon the arrival of Longstreet from Virginia. Prior to this, the Corps commanders reported directly to Bragg.
Let's spread it out a little bit here.
Right.
Bushrod Johnson's division took the wrong road from Ringgold, but eventually headed west on the Reed's Bridge Road.
You got it right.
At 7 a.m., his men encountered cavalry pickets from Colonel Robert Minty's brigade. He was not mentioned in anything we read. He just
Right, if he would have took the right road, he would never even ran into him.
I'm talking about Minty.
Right.
He wasn't even in
Right.
none of these.
Right.
So why wasn't he?
Maybe because he took the wrong road. He wasn't supposed to be in the...
Maybe. Minty's brigade was guarding the approach to Reed's Bridge. Being outnumbered 5-1, Minty's men eventually withdrew across the bridge after being pressured by elements of Force's cavalry.
Okay.
But could not destroy the bridge and prevent Johnson's men from crossing.
Nope.
4:30 p.m., when Johnson had reached Jay's Mill, Major General John Bell Hood of Longstreet's Corps arrived from the railroad station at Catoosa and took command of the column.
Damn right they did. I'm like, this is us now, guys.
Come on.
He's like, FBI's here.
This is the army, right? This is the Army of Northern Virginia, baby. This is our jurisdiction.
This bullshit, Hood. We've been working this case for...
Suck it.
We've been working this territory for 2 years.
Not anymore.
Not anymore. You take that up with the big man. He had then ordered Johnson to use the Jays Mill Road instead of the Brotherton Road, as Johnson had planned. At Alexander's Bridge to the south, Colonel John T. Wilders of the North Mounted Infantry Brigade defended the crossing against the approach of Walker's Corps from the Rebs. Armed with Spencer repeating rifles and Captain Lilly's four guns of the 18th Indiana Battery, Wilder was able to hold off a brigade of the Brigadier General St. John Liddell's, which suffered 105 casualties against Wilder's superior firepower. Yeah, you don't mess with the guns, man.
Right.
Walker moved his men downstream a mile to Lambert's Ford, and it was an unguarded crossing, and it was able to cross around 4:30 p.m., considerably behind schedule, obviously.
Behind schedule, but crossed nonetheless. Wilder, concerned about his left flank after Minty's loss of Reed's Bridge, withdrew and established a new blocking position east of the Lafayette Road near the Vineyard Farm. By dark, Johnson's division had halted in front of Wilder's position. Walker had crossed the creek, but his troops were well scattered along the road behind Johnson. Buckner had been able to push only one brigade across the creek at Thedford's Ford, and Polk's troops were facing Crittenden's at Lee and Gordon's Mill, and D.H. Hill Corps guarded the crossing sites to the south. We got action everywhere, dude. This battle site's got to be huge.
Although Bragg had achieved some degree of surprise, he failed to exploit it strongly. Rosecrans, observing the dust raised by the marching Confederates in the morning, anticipated Bragg's plan. He ordered Thomas and McCook to Crittenden's support. And while Confederates were crossing the creek, Thomas began to arrive in Crittenden's rear area.
The land between Chickamauga Creek and the Lafayette Road was gently rolling, but almost completely wooded. In the woods, no officer above brigadier could see all his command at once. And even the brigadiers often could see nobody's troops but their own and perhaps the enemy's. Chickamauga would be a classic soldier's battle.
You ain't kidding.
But it would test officers at every level of command in ways they had not been previously tested.
Yeah.
An additional complication was that each army would be attempting to fight a shifting battle while shifting its own position.
You ain't kidding.
Each general would have to conduct a battle while shuffling his own units northward toward an enemy of whose position he could get only the vaguest idea.
Exactly, until you ran into him.
Right. Strange and wonderful opportunities would loom out of the leaves, vines, and gunsmoke.
Right.
To be touched and vaguely sensed and then fade away again into the figurative fog of confusion that bedeviled men on both sides. In retrospect, victory for either side would look simple when unit positions were reviewed on a neat map.
Right.
But in Chickamauga's torn and smoky woodlands, nothing was simple.
Dude.
This comes from the book 6 Armies in Tennessee, written by Stephen E. Woodworth.
They don't call them Smoky Mountains for nothing. Rosecrans' movement from Major General George Thomas's 14th Corps that previous day put the left flank of the Army of the Cumberland farther north than Bragg expected when he formulated his plans for an attack on the 20th of September. Major General Thomas Crittenden's 21st Corps was concentrated around Lee and Gordon's Mill, which Bragg assumed was the left flank, but Thomas was arrayed behind him, covering a wide front from Crawford Springs, which was the division of Major General James Negley. Also at the Widow Glenn's house was Major General Joseph Reynolds was there. Then you had him at the Kelly Field, which was Brigadier General Absalom Baird, and around the McDonald Farm, which is by
Old McDonald had a farm.
Right, and Brigadier General John Brandon was there. Major General Gordon Granger's Reserve Corps was spread along the northern end of the battlefield from Rossville to McAfee's Church.
All right, Bragg's Bragg's plan called for an attack on the supposed Union left flank by the Corps Major General Simon Buckner, John Bell Hood, and W.H.T. Walker, screened by Brigadier General Nathan Bedford Forrest's cavalry to the north.
Beautiful. With
Major General Benjamin Chetham's division held in reserve in the center, and Major General Patrick Claiborne's division in reserve at Thetford's Ford. Major General Thomas Hinman's division faced Crittenden at Lee and Gordon's Mill, and Breckinridge's faced Negley.
Damn right.
The Battle of Chickamauga opened almost by accident when pickets from Colonel Daniel McCook's brigade of Granger's Reserve Corps moved toward Jay's Mill in search of water.
Ooh. McCook had moved from Rossville on 18th September to aid Colonel Robert Minty's brigade. His men established a defensive position several hundred yards northwest of Jay's Mill, but was equally distanced from where the 1st Georgia Cavalry waited through the night south of the mill. Oh, shit. Didn't even know it. At about that time, McCook sent a regiment to destroy Reed's Bridge, which would survive the second attempt in 2 days to destroy it.
Jeez. Brigadier
General Henry Davidson of Fort Forrest's cavalry corps sent the 1st Georgia forward, and they encountered some of McCook's men near the mill.
Well, McCook was ordered by Granger to withdraw back to Rossville, and his men were pursued by Davidson's troopers.
Damn right they were.
McCook encountered Thomas at the Lafayette Road, having finished an all-night march from Crawfish Springs. This dude's like, dude, really?
What?
McCook reported to Thomas that a single Confederate infantry brigade was trapped on the west side of Chickamauga Creek. Thomas told Brandon's division to attack and destroy.
What are you thinking? Get rid of it.
Right, that's what he's doing.
Brandon sent 3 brigades in response to Thomas's order. Colonel Ferdinand Van de Veer's brigade moved southeast on the Reed's Bridge Road. Colonel John Croxton's brigade on his right. Colonel John Connell's brigade came up behind in reserve.
I'm here for John Connell.
Right. John Connell. No. Croxton's men drove back Davidson's advanced cavalrymen, and Forrest formed a defensive line of dismounted troopers to stem the tide. Croxton halted.
What good is dismounted troopers, guys? Keep your horses.
Right. Croxton halted his advance because he was unsure of Forrest's strength. Forrest requested reinforcements from Bragg and Walker near Alexander's Bridge, and Walker ordered Colonel Claudius Wilson's brigade forward at about 9 a.m. They hit Croxton's right flank.
Oh, no. Ooh. Forrest protected his own flank by deploying the brigade of Colonel George Dibrell, which ran into Vanderveer's brigade and then came to a halt under fire. Forrest sent in Brigadier General Matthew Ector's brigade, part of Walker's reserve corps, but without Walker's knowledge. Oh, man, you can't do that. Ector's men replaced Jabel's in line, but they were also unable to drive Vanderveer from his position. Brandon's division was holding its ground against Forrest and his infantry reinforcements, but as is the case a lot of times, ammo's getting low.
So Thomas sent Bayard's division to assist, which advanced with 2 brigades forward and 1 in reserve. Brigadier General John King's brigade of the United States Army regulars, they relieved Croxton. The brigade of Colonel Benjamin Scribner took up a position on King's right, and then Colonel John Starkweather's brigade remained in reserve. With superior numbers and firepower, Scribner and King were able to start pushing back Wilson and Ector. The Rebs were running.
Well, Bragg commanded the division of Brigadier General St. John R. Liddell to fight, and then he countered Thomas's reinforcements. The brigades of the brigades of Colonel Daniel Gubbin and Brigadier General Edward Walthall advanced along the Alexander's Bridge Road, smashing Baird's right flank. Both Scribner's and Starkweather's brigades retreated in panic, followed by King's regulars, who dashed for the rear through Vanderveer's brigade. Vanderveer's men halted the Confederate advance with a concentrated volley at close range. Liddell's exhausted men began to withdraw, and Coxton's brigade, returning to the action, pushed them back beyond the wind-free field. Oprah's like, you get a field, and you get a field.
Right. Believing that Rosecrans was attempting to move to the center of the battle farther north than Bragg planned, Bragg began rushing heavy reinforcements from all parts of his line to his right, starting with Chetham's division of Polk's Corps, the largest in the Army of Tennessee with 5 brigades. About 11 a.m., Chetham's men approached Liddell's halted division and formed it on its left. 3 brigades under Brigadier Generals Marcus Wright, Preston Smith, and John Jackson formed the front line, and Brigadier Generals Otho Strahl and George Maney commanded the brigades in the second line.
Their advance greatly overlapped Croxton's brigade and had no difficulty pushing it back.
Right.
As Croxton withdrew, his brigade was replaced by Brigadier General Richard Johnson's division of McCook's 20th Corps near the Lafayette Road. Johnson's lead brigades under Colonel Philemon Baldwin and Brigadier General August Willich engaged Jackson's brigade, protecting Croxton's withdrawal.
Trying.
Although outnumbered, Jackson held under the pressure until his ammunition ran low and he called for reinforcements. Cheatham sent in Maney's small brigade to replace Jackson, but they were no match for the two larger Federal brigades, and Maney was forced to withdraw as both of his flanks were crushed. How the hell does the Confederates win this?
All right. Additional Union reinforcements arrived shortly after Johnson. Major General John Palmer's division of Crittenden's Corps, they marched from Lee and Gordon's Mill and advanced into the fight with 3 brigades in line, which were the brigades of Brigadier General William Hazen, Brigadier General Charles Cruft, and Colonel William Gross. And they were against the Confederate brigades of Wright and Smith. Smith's brigade bore the brunt of the attack in the Brockfield and was replaced by Straw's brigade, which also had to withdraw under the pressure. Jeez. 2 more Union brigades followed Palmer's division, Brigadier General Horatio Van Cleve's division of the 21st Corps, who formed on the left flank of Wright's brigade. The attack of Brigadier General Samuel Beatty's brigade was a tipping point that caused Wright's brigade to join the retreat with Cheatham's other units. Like, we gotta go.
Well, for a third time, Bragg ordered a fresh division to move in. This time, Major General Alexander Stewart's, which was part of Buckner's corps from his position at Thetford Ford, came in around noon. Stewart encountered Wright's retreating brigade at the Brock Farm and decided to attack Van Cleve's position on his left, a decision he made under his own authority. With his brigades deployed, you think you got to kind of do that when you're out on the field anyway.
I'll say so.
With his brigades deployed in column, Brigadier General Henry Clayton's was the first to hit 3 Federal brigades around the Brotherton Farm. Fire until their ammunition was gone. Clayton's men were replaced with Brigadier General John Brown's brigade. It's like,
right.
They're like revolving, dude.
Wow. Brown drove Beatty and Dick's men from the woods east of Lafayette Road.
The old Beatty Dick.
And they paused to regroup. Stewart committed his last brigade under Brigadier General William Bate around 3:30 p.m. and routed Van Cleve's division.
Oh.
Hazen's brigade was caught up in the retreat as they were replenishing their ammo. Colonel James Sheffield's brigade from Hood's division drove back Gross's and Cruft's brigades. Brigadier General John Turchin's brigade, which was Reynolds' division, counterattacked and briefly held off Sheffield, but the Confederates had caused a major penetration in the Federal line in the area of the Brotherton and Dyer fields. Stewart did not have sufficient forces to maintain that position, though, and he was then forced to order Bate to withdraw east of the Lafayette Road.
All right, around 2 p.m., the division Brigadier General Bushrod Johnson of Hood's Corps encountered the advance of Union Brigadier General Jefferson C. Davis's 2-brigade division of the 20th Corps, marching north from Crawfish Springs. Johnson's men attacked Colonel Hans Hegg's brigade on Davis's left and forced it across the Lafayette Road. Hood ordered Johnson to continue the attack by crossing the Lafayette Road with 2 brigades in line and 1 in reserve. He said, go get 'em, baby.
Get 'em, boy. 2 brigades drifted apart during the attack. On the right, Colonel John Fulton's brigade routed King's brigade and linked up with Bate at Brotherton Field. On the left, Brigadier General John Gregg's brigade, they attacked Wilder's Union brigade in its reserve position at the Vineyard Farm. Gregg was seriously wounded and his brigade advanced. It halted. Brigadier General Evander McNair's brigade, called up from the rear, also lost their cohesion during the advance.
Union Brigadier General Thomas J. Wood's division was ordered to march north from Lee and Gordon's Mill around 3 p.m. His brigade, under Colonel George Buell, he was posted north of the Vineyard House, while Colonel Charles Harker's brigade continued up the Lafayette Road. Harker's brigade arrived in the rear of Fulton's and McNair's Confederate regiments, fired into their backs. Although the Confederates retreated to the woods east of the road, Harker realized he was isolated and quickly withdrew.
Oh, man.
At the Vineyard House, Buell's men were attacked by part of Brigadier General Evander Law's division of Hood's Corps.
Brigades of Brigadier General Jerome B. Robertson and Henry Benning, they pushed southwest toward Vineyard Field, pushing back Brigadier William pushing back Brigadier William Carlin's brigade, which was Davis's division, and fiercely struck Buell's brigade, pushing them back behind Wilder's line. Hood and Johnson's men, pushing strongly forward, approached so close to Rosecrans' new headquarters at the tiny cabin of widow Eliza Glenn that the staffers inside had to shout to make themselves heard over the sounds of battle.
Jeez, it's time to get the fuck out of there, I guess, huh?
There was a significant risk of a Federal rout in that part of the line. Wilder's men eventually held back the Confederate advance, fighting from behind a drainage ditch.
That's probably what saved them, too.
Man, you ain't kidding.
The Federals launched several unsuccessful counterattacks late in the afternoon to regain the ground around the Vineyard House. Colonel Haig was mortally wounded during one of these advances. Late in the day, Rosecrans deployed almost his last reserve, Major General Philip Sheridan. Philip Sheridan's just easy, and he's the guy that's going to march towards the DMC.
Right.
Right?
Maybe.
Is that the Sheridan, or is it a different Sheridan?
It was a different one.
His division of McCook's Corps, that's who Rosecrans deployed. Marching north from Lee and Gordon's Mill, Sheridan took the brigades of Colonels Luther Bradley and Bernard LaBolt. Bradley's brigade was in the lead and was able to push the heavily outnumbered brigades of Robertson and Benning out of Vineyard Field. Bradley was wounded during the attack, though.
Oh. By 6 p.m., darkness was falling very fast, but Bragg was like, no, we will push the Federal Army to the south. He ordered Major General Patrick Claiborne's division of Hill's Corps to join Polk on the Army's right. This area of the battlefield had been quiet for several hours as the fighting moved progressively southward. George Thomas from the north had been consolidating his lines. Ooh, that's a good word for me. George Thomas had been consolidating his lines, withdrawing slightly to the west to what he considered a superior defensive position.
All right. Well, Dick Johnson's division and Absalom Baird's brigade were in the rear of Thomas's westward migration, covering the withdrawal. Why do these people? I'd like to meet the people that write these. Like, you have to be off tutti frutti with your words and shit, dude.
Dumb
all
bastard.
this rigmarole.
Right.
At sunset, Claiborne launched an attack with 3 brigades in line. From left to right, it was Brigadier Generals James Deschler, Sterling Wood, and then Lucius Polk. Oh, is he akin to Leonidas? Lucius and Leonidas, I would think, right? The attack degenerated into chaos with limited visibility of the twilight and smoke from burning underbrush. Some of Absalom Baird's men advanced to support Baldwin's Union Brigade, but mistakenly fired at them and were subjected to return friendly fire. This is why you don't. I just put out a freaking a little YouTube clip from literally a battle in 1861. Can't remember what it was, but they're doing the same thing here. You don't do shit at night, man.
No, Baldwin was shot dead from his horse attempting to lead a counterattack. Deschler's brigade missed their objective entirely, and Deschler was shot in the chest while examining the ammunition boxes.
He's like, well, damn, look at all this ammo.
Brigadier General Preston Smith led his brigade forward to support Deschler and mistakenly rode into the lines of Colonel Joseph Dodge's brigade, which is
He was like, get out of Dodge.
and they shot him down. By 9 p.m., Claiborne's men retained possession of the Winfrey Field, and Johnson and Baird had been driven back inside Thomas's new defensive line.
What a disaster.
The Union just got man, it was like a fumble.
Dude, the Union, they were controlling the whole freaking game up until the fourth quarter until they fumbled and threw a couple interceptions, and then now they're, wow. That's crazy.
Back to back to back.
How the hell did that just turn like that?
Jeez.
Casualties for the first day of battle are difficult to calculate because losses are usually reported for the entire battle. Historian Peter Cozzens wrote that an estimate of between 6,000 and 9,000 Confederates and perhaps 7,000 Confederates seemed reasonable just for one day. At Rax and Bragg's headquarters at Thetford Ford, the commanding general was officially pleased with the day's events. He reported that night found us masters of the ground after a series of very obstinate contests with largely superior numbers.
Right. If nothing would happen after dark, dude, they would have been fine. Next day would have been a different type of battle. However, his attacks had been launched in a disjointed fashion, though, failing to achieve a concentration of mass to defeat Rosecrans or even cut him off from Chattanooga. Army of Tennessee's historian Thomas Connolly criticized Bragg's conduct of the battle on the 19th of September of 1863. He cited that the lack of specific orders to his subordinates and a series of sporadic attacks which only sapped Bragg's strength and enabled Rosecrans to locate the rebel position. True.
Well, he also wrote that Bragg bypassed 2 opportunities to win the battle on September 9th. He says, Bragg's inability to readjust his plans had cost him heavily. He had never admitted that he was wrong about the location of Rosecrans' left wing.
He was.
And that, as a result, he bypassed 2 splendid opportunities.
He did.
During the day, Bragg might have sent heavy reinforcements to Walker and attempted to roll up the Union left, or he could have attacked the Union center, where he knew troops were passing from to the left. Unable to decide on either, Bragg tried to do both, wasting his men in sporadic assaults.
That's so stupid.
Now his army was crippled and in no better position than that morning.
Right.
Walker had, in the day's fighting, lost over 20% of his strength, while Stewart and Claiborne had lost 30%. Gone, too, was any hope for the advantage of a surprise blow against Rosecrans.
Wow. Bragg met individually with the subordinates, and he formed them. He was reorganized the Army of Tennessee into 2 wings. Polk, the senior lieutenant general on the field, but junior to Longstreet, was given the right command and command of Hill's Corps, Walker's Corps, and Cheatham's division. Polk was also ordered to initiate the assault on the Federal left at the daybreak, beginning with the division of Breckinridge, followed progressively by Claiborne, Stewart, Hood, McLaws, Bushrod, Johnson, Hinman, and Preston.
That's funny, because Bushrod's last name is Johnson.
Shit. And when Bragg was informed that Lieutenant General James Longstreet had just arrived by train from Virginia,
Hey, look at that.
he designated him as the left wing commander. He's like, guess what, bud? Go command that left wing.
He's all right.
And he was commanding Hood's Corps, Buckner's Corps, and Hedman's division of Polk's Corps.
Well, Longstreet arrived late on the night of September 19th and had to find his way into the dark to Bragg's headquarters, since Bragg did not send a guide to meet him.
Oh, what
Longstreet,
piece of shit.
right?
What a piece of shit.
Longstreet,
decorated.
Oh, come on now, Bragg. Longstreet found Bragg asleep and woke him up at 11:30 p.m.
Oh, come on, 11 p.m.
Or 11 p.m., okay, Annie.
No 30. Where'd you see a 3 and
Oh. But still, really? You're sleeping, Bragg, at 11 p.m.?
And you know he's coming.
He probably had been up since like 2 in the morning, but still. Bragg told Longstreet he would take charge of the left wing, explaining his battle plan for September 20th, and provided Longstreet a map of the area. The 3rd Lieutenant General of the Army, D.H. Hill, was not informed directly by Bragg of his effective demotion to Polk's subordinate.
I mean, how would you
but
not?
He learned his status from a staff officer.
That's where this guy is. He's getting shafted everywhere.
Right. Well,
It's like he's not even.
hey, Hill, don't be a dick.
Right.
He's already done some stupid shit since he's been here.
Right. He's like, dude, you don't even get acknowledgement from me. I'm gonna let this guy who shines my shoe.
I'm gonna let my homies ride on you, bitch-made ass bad boy bitches.
Right. I'm gonna let the fucking the flag bearer be like, man, it's sad what happened. He's like, what are you talking about? Oh, you didn't know?
Pretty much.
He's like, how the fuck does the flag guy know?
What Hill did not know or did not learn was his role in the upcoming battle. The courier, sent with written orders, was not able to find Hill and returned to his unit without informing anybody. Major General John Breckinridge, one of Hill's division commanders, was at Polk's headquarters, but was not informed that his division was to initiate the dawn attack. What are these guys doing? At 5 a.m., September 20th, Polk was awakened on the cold and foggy battlefield to find that Hill was not preparing to attack. He prepared new written orders, which reached Hill about 6 a.m. Hill responded with a number of reasons for delaying the attack, including the readjustments of the alignment of his units, reconnaissance on the enemy line, and issuing breakfast rations to his men.
Oh, jeez.
Reluctantly, Bragg agreed.
He's probably like, I wish this guy would just go somewhere.
Right.
Man. Well, on the federal side, Rosecrans held a council of war with most of his corps commanders and division commanders to determine a course of action for the September 20th fight. The Army of the Cumberland had been significantly hurt in the first days of battle, and only 5 fresh brigades available, whereas the Confederate Army had been receiving reinforcements and now outnumbered the Federales. Both of these facts rule out a Union offensive. He goes, we just got to wait for them to do stuff. The presence of Assistant Secretary of War, Charles A. Dana, at the meeting made any discussion of retreating difficult. Right? Like, hey,
This guy's over here, don't say shit.
he's like, how about we? And
The guy's like tapping his pen. So, yeah, see, that's stupid. Just because this guy's there too.
Right.
So fucking get a bunch of your men slaughtered
right,
just
just to
because.
make yourself look good.
Right.
He's going to go report back. They're hesitant. They're outnumbered 7-1, but they didn't want to fight.
Rose, could you believe this? Rosecrans was considering a retreat.
Rosecrans decided that his army had to remain in place on the defensive. He recalled that Bragg had to retreat after Perryville and Stones River and could conceivably repeat that same behavior. I don't think Bragg's retreating. I think you guys are both sitting here going to be like...
Well, he did at Perryville and Stones River after...
But this is the spot where everybody's like, we're digging in here.
Well, Rosecrans' defensive line consisted of Thomas at left tackle. Rosecrans' defensive line consisted of Thomas in his present position, a salient that encompassed the Kelly Farm east of the Lafayette Road, which Thomas's engineer had fortified overnight with log breastworks. To the right, McCook withdrew his men from the Vineyard Field and anchored his right near the Widow's Glens. Crittenden was put in reserve, and Granger, still concentrated at Rossville, was notified to be prepared to support either Thomas or McCook, although practically he could only support Thomas.
Right.
Are they still all spread out like they were?
I believe so, or probably a little closer. If I remember that day correctly. It was still before dawn. Bayard reported to Thomas that his line stopped short of the intersection of Lafayette and McFarland's Gap Roads, and that he could not cover it without weakening his line critically. Thomas requested that his division under James Nagley be moved from McCook's sector to correct this very problem. Rosecrans also directed that McCook was to replace Nagley in line, but he found soon afterward that Nagley had been not relieved. He ordered Nagley to send his reserve brigade to Thomas immediately, and then continue to ride on an inspection of the lines. He's like, go check the fences, bud.
Right. Well, on a return visit, he found Negley was still in position, and Thomas Wood's division was just arriving to relieve him. Rosecrans ordered Wood to expedite his relief of Negley's remaining brigades. Some staff officers later recalled that Rosecrans had been extremely angry and berated Wood in front of his staff, although Wood denied that this incident occurred. As Negley's remaining brigades moved north, the first attack of the second day of the Battle of Chickamauga has begun.
Yeah, you usually didn't reprimand your officers in front of...
Oh, clearly, that's like Rule 101 of leadership.
The battle on the second day began at about 9:30 a.m. on the left flank of the Union line.
That is late in the day to be starting.
Right. And that happened on the left flank of the Union line about 4 hours after Bragg had ordered the attack to start. Oh, shit. With coordinated attacks planned by Breckinridge and Claiborne of D.H. Hill's Corps, Polk's right wing as well.
Well, that whole thing.
Right. Bragg's intention was that this would be the start of a successive attacks progressing leftward in echelon, whatever that means.
Echelon, man.
Right.
We've had that a million times.
Oh, and it's also along the Confederate line, designed to drive the Union Army south, away from its escape routes, through the Rossville Gap and the McFarland's Gap as well. The late start was significant. At day dawn, there were no significant defensive breastworks constructed by Thomas's men yet. Yeah, you moron. These formidable obstacles were built in just a few hours after dawn. Bragg wrote after the war that if it were not for the loss of these hours, our independence might have been won. And,
I don't think so.
I mean, they won the battle anyway.
Right. Breckinridge's brigades under Brigadier Generals Benjamin Helm, Marcellus A. Stovall, and Daniel Adams moved forward left to right in a single line. Helm's Orphan Brigade of the Kentuckians was the first to make contact with Thomas's breastworks, and Helm, who was the favorite brother-in-law of Abraham Lincoln, was mortally wounded while attempting to motivate his Kentuckians forward to assault the strong position.
And that Lincoln family.
Damn, didn't Lincoln have another guy that, I swear I just put out a clip the other day that Lincoln's cousin or brother was fighting for the Confederates.
Right.
Breckinridge's other two brigades made better progress against the brigade of Brigadier General John Beatty, which was in Negley's division, which was attempting to defend a line of a width more suitable for a division. Okay.
Fantastic. As he found the left flank of the Union line, Breckinridge realigned his two brigades to straddle the Lafayette Road to move south, threatening the rear of Thomas's Kelly Field salient. Thomas called up reinforcements from Brandon's reserve division, and Colonel Ferdinand Verneveers, his brigades charged at Stovall's men, driving them back.
What a lazy attempt to Ferdinand Verneveers.
Adams' brigade was stopped by Colonel Timothy Robbins Stanley, brigade of Negley's division. Then Adams was wounded, and he was left behind as his men retreated to their starting position.
Jeez.
The other part of Hill's attack also floundered. So D.H. Hill, this guy. Claiborne's division met heavy resistance at the breastworks defended by the divisions of Baird, Johnson, Palmer, and Reynolds of the Union. There were confusing lines of battle, including an overlap with Stewart's division on Claiborne's left, diminishing the effectiveness of the Confederate attack. This is just complete stupidity.
Well, Chetham's division, waiting in reserve, also could not advance because of left-wing troops to their front. Hill brought up Gist's brigade, commanded by Colonel Peyton Colquitt of Walker's Corps, to fill the gap between Breckinridge and Claiborne. Colquitt was killed, and his brigade suffered severe casualties in their aborted advance. Walker brought the remainder of his division forward to rescue the survivors of Gist's brigade. On his right flank, Hill sent Colonel Daniel Govin's brigade of Liddell's division to support Breckinridge, but the brigade was forced to retreat along with Stovall's and Adams' men in the face of a federal counterattack.
Jeez. Wow. That's just a big old clusterfuck there.
That's not going as planned yet for these guys, huh?
Oh, the attack on the Confederate right flank had petered out by noon.
Jeez. It's children.
Children, I tell you. The Confederates had their peters out, and then by noon
They're like,
that's the rebel yell. The rebel,
the yellow or the rebel smacking is like they're like.
What the hell is that? You don't want to know. You won't want to see
thousands of Peters just smacking against.
Ready, boys? Peter out. The attack on The attack on the Confederate right flank had petered out by noon, but it caused great commotion throughout Rosecrans' army as Thomas sent staff officers to seek aid from fellow generals along the line. West of the pole field, Brandon's division was manning the line between Reynolds' division on his left and then Wood's on his right. His reserve brigade was marching north to aid Thomas, but at about 10 a.m., he received one of Thomas's staff officers asking for additional assistance. Jeez. He's like, we ran into some skirmishers back here. He knew that if his entire division were withdrawn from the line, it would expose the flanks of the neighboring divisions. So he said, Reynolds, what should I do?
Well, Reynolds agreed to the proposed movement, but sent word to Rosecrans warning him of the possibly dangerous situation that would result. However, Brandon remained in his position on the line, apparently wishing for Thomas's request to be approved by Rosecrans. The staff officer continued to think that Brandon was already in motion. Receiving the message on the west end of the dire field, Rosecrans, who assumed that Brandon had already left the line, desired Wood to fill the hole that would be created.
Yeah, you don't have time to get a message back.
Right.
You just, hey, this is what we're doing. We'll deal with the consequences later.
His chief of staff, James A. Garfield, who would have known that Brandon was staying in line, was busy writing orders for parts of Sheridan's and Van Cleve's divisions to support Thomas. Jeez, what the hell?
What the hell's going on here? Rosecrans' order was instead written by Frank Bond, a senior aide in camp.
Name's Bond.
Right.
Frank Bond.
Frank Bond. Generally competent but inexperienced at order writing was Frank Bond. Rosecrans dictated, and Bond wrote the following order. The general commanding directs that you close up on Reynolds as fast as possible and support him. This contradictory order was not reviewed by Rosecrans, who by this point was increasingly worn out, and was sent to Wood directly, bypassing his corps commander, Crittenden. Oh, man. How do you do that?
That directs you to close up on Reynolds as fast as possible and support him.
Right.
How's this contradictory? It literally says to go to him.
And he's still there.
Okay, right. Wood was perplexed by Rosecrans' order, which he received around 10:50 a.m. Since Brandon was still on his left flank.
He's like, what are you talking about?
Since Brandon was still on his left flank, Wood would not be able to close up on, a military term that meant to move adjacent to, Reynolds with Brandon's division in the way.
Exactly.
Okay. Therefore, the only possibility was withdraw from the line, march around behind Brandon, and form up behind Reynolds, the military meaning of the word support. Oh.
Get it?
I get it. This was obviously a risky move, leaving an opening in the line. Wood spoke with Corps Commander McCook and claimed later, along with members of both his and McCook's staff, that McCook agreed to fill the resulting gap with the 20th Corps units.
So a bunch of freaking, who knows what's going on here? Wow. McCook maintained that he had not enough units to spare to cover a division-wide hole, although he did send Haig's brigade to partially fill the gap. About this time, Bragg also made a preemptory order based on incomplete information. Oh, jeez. Impatient that his attack was not progressing to the left, he sent orders for all of his commands to advance at once. He said, screw it.
Everybody just go, man. Fuck it.
Major General Alexander P. Stewart of Longstreet's wing received the command and immediately ordered his division forward without even consulting Longstreet.
Doesn't matter now.
Gotta go.
His brigades under Brigadier...
figure it out.
Right. He was like, well, these guys are moving. Let's
go.
His brigades under Brigadier Generals Henry Clayton, John Brown, and William Bate attacked across the Poe Field in the direction of the Union divisions of Brandon and Reynolds. Along with Brigadier General Sam Woods, S.A.M. Woods, brigade of Claiborne's division, Stewart's men disabled Brandon's right flank and pushed back Van Cleve's division in Brandon's rear.
These guys don't know what's going on.
Momentarily crossing the Lafayette Road. Ooh. A federal counterattack drove Stewart's division back to its starting point, though.
Dude, look at how many people the Confederates had. That's just ridiculous. Longstreet also received Bragg's order, but did not act immediately. Surprised by Stewart's advance, he held up the order for a remainder of his wing. Longstreet had spent the morning attempting to arrange his lines so his divisions from the Army of North Virginia would be in the front. But those movements had resulted in the battle line confusion that had plagued Claiborne earlier. When Longstreet was finally ready, he had amassed a concentrated striking force commanded by Major General John Bell Hood of 3 divisions with 8 brigades arranged in 5 lines. Dude, he was like, nah, we can wait, but when we do go, we're going to be huge. It's going to be like Gettysburg again.
Well, almost, right? In the lead, Brigadier General Bushrod Johnson's division straddled the Brotherton Road in 2 echelons. They were followed by Hood's division, now commanded by Brigadier General Evander Law, 2 brigades of Major General Lafayette McLaw's division, commanded by Brigadier General Joseph Kershaw. All right. To the left of this column was Major General Thomas Hidman's division. Then Brigadier General William Preston's division of Buckner's Corps was in reserve behind Hidman.
Awesome.
Damn, they got reinforcements.
Right. Longstreet's force of 10,000 men, primarily infantry, was similar in number to those he sent forward in Pickett's charge at Gettysburg.
It didn't go so well for him, though.
Pickett's charge, yeah. And some historians judged that he learned the lessons of that failed assault by providing a massive, narrow column to break the enemy line. Historian Harold Knudsen had described this deployment on a narrow front as similar to the style of the German Schwerpunkt in the World War II, achieving an attacker-defender ratio of 8-to-1.
Oh, shit.
Biographer Jeffrey Wirt also cites the innovative approach that Longstreet adopted, demonstrating his skill as a battlefield commander.
Do you think Hitler studied, like, past battles?
Who?
Hitler.
Well, I'm sure.
Do you think he, like, studied, like, past conflicts and shit and, like, what was successful and who did what and, like, the famous battles
Most
and all that
likely.
shit?
I'm sure.
You think, right?
Mm-hmm. William Glenn Robinson, however, contends that Longstreet's deployment was happenstance and that the general's after-reaction report and memoirs do not demonstrate that he had a grand 3-division column in mind. I think he did. Well, not at first. That came at the end, right?
Well, the scene now presented was unspeakably grand. Okay. This is a quote. The scene now presented was unspeakably grand. The resolute and impetuous charge, the rush of our heavy columns sweeping out from the shadow and gloom of the forest into the open fields flooded with sunlight, the glitter of arms, the onward dash of artillery and mounted men, the retreat of the foe, the shouts of the host of our army, the dust, the smoke, the noise of firearms and whistling balls and grape shot and of bursting shell, made up a battle scene of unsurpassed grandeur. Confederate Brigadier General Bushrod Johnson.
No shit. That sounds pretty actually interesting.
Right.
I might join the Civil War.
Confederates. Yes, we know.
Longstreet gave the order to move.
Straight right, baby.
Straight right. Longstreet gave the order to move at about 11:10 a.m. and Johnson's division proceeded across the Brotherton Field, by coincidence to precisely the same point where Woods' Union division was pulling out of the line.
By coincidence, huh?
Johnson's brigade on the left, commanded by Colonel John S. Fulton, drove directly through that gap.
Wow.
The brigade on the right, under Brigadier General Evander McNair, encountered opposition from Brannan's division, which was parts of Colonel John Connell. Yeah, John Connell.
I'm here for John Connell.
John Connell. It was parts of John Connell's brigade, but it was able to push through it. What? Yeah, McNair, he was able to push through Brandon's. The result was that very soon to be a devastating rout of the Union Army. The few Union soldiers in that sector ran in panic from the onslaught. Like, oh yes, they're Petering.
They got their cocks out. At the far side of the dire field, several Union batteries of the 21st Corps Reserve Artillery were set up, but without infantry support. Oh, that sucks. Although the Confederate infantrymen hesitated briefly, Gregg's brigade, commanded by Colonel Cyrus Sugg, which flanked the guns on their right, Sheffield's brigade, commanded by Colonel William Perry, and the brigade of Brigadier General Jerome Robertson, they captured 15 of the 26 cannons on the ridge.
All right.
As the Union troops were withdrawing, Wood stopped his brigade, commanded by Colonel Charles Harker, and sent it back with orders to counterattack the Confederates.
Yeah, right. Somebody's got to do something. Harker, you go.
And he's like, damn it.
Yeah. They appeared on the scene at the flank of the Confederates, who had captured the artillery pieces, causing them to retreat. The brigades of McNair, Perry, and Robinson became intermingled as they ran for shelter in the woods east of the field. Hood ordered Kershaw's brigade to attack Harker and then raced toward Robinson's brigade of the Texans, which was Hood's old brigade. As he reached his former unit, a bullet struck him in the right thigh, knocking him from his horse. He was taken to a hospital near Alexander's Bridge, where his leg was amputated a few inches from the hip.
Oh, dude, they were cutting through big bone.
Yeah. Dude, they were like, wow, we're going to have to amputate it.
Shit.
Can't take that lead out of there.
Harker conducted a fighting withdrawal under pressure from Kershaw, retreating to Horseshoe Ridge near the tiny house of George Washington Snodgrass. Finding a good defensible position there, Harker's men were able to resist the multiple assaults beginning at 1 p.m. That began at 1 p.m. from the brigades of Kershaw and Brigadier General Benjamin Humphreys. These two brigades had no assistance from their nearby fellow brigade commanders. Perry and Robertson were attempting to reorganize their brigades after they were routed into the woods.
Yeah, why did they go up so fast and not expect anything to come back? What the hell were they thinking?
That's because
they're like, oh, they're on a run.
Bragg was getting a little restless over here.
Brigadier
He's
General.
like, we were supposed to start attacking 5 hours ago, dude.
Right. Brigadier General Henry Benning's brigade turned north after crossing Lafayette Road in pursuit of 2 brigades of Brandon's division. And he then halted for the afternoon near the Poe House.
At the Poe House.
Hindman's division attacked the Union line to the south of Hood's column and encountered considerably more resistance. The brigade on the right, commanded by Brigadier General Zechariah Zechariah Dees. They drove back 2 brigades of Davis's division, and they also defeated Colonel Bernard Labold's division, a brigade of Sheridan's division. Sheridan's 2 remaining brigades, under Brigadier General William Little and Colonel Nathan Walworth, they checked the Confederate advance on a slight ridge west of the Dyer Field, near the Widow Glen House.
While leading his men in the defense, Little was killed, and his men, now outflanked and leaderless, fled west.
Damn it.
Hindman's brigade on the left, under Brigadier General Arthur Manigault, crossed the field east of the Widow Glen's house when Colonel John T. Wilder's mounted infantry brigade advances from its reserve position, launched a strong counterattack with Spencer repeating rifles, driving the enemy around and through what became known as Bloody Pond. Having nullified Manigault's advance, Wilder decided to attack the flank of Hood's column. He said, damn, we're going to attack now.
Right.
However, just then, Assistant Secretary of War Dana found Wilder and excitedly proclaimed that the battle was lost and demanded to be escorted to Chattanooga.
Wow, what a pussy.
And the time that Wilder took to calm down the secretary and arrange a small detachment to escort him back to safety, the opportunity for a successful attack was lost, and he ordered his men to withdraw to the west.
That's such bullshit.
Dana, you're a piece of shit.
Right. He was like, I see enough.
We lost the battle. Get me out of here.
Like, dude.
That's probably how he was.
He's like, dude, this is all right. We still got a couple more days of this shit.
No.
All Union resistance at the southern end of the battlefield evaporated. Sheridan and Davis's men, they fell back to the escape route at McFarland's Gap, taking them with them elements of Van Cleve's and Negley's divisions. The majority of units on the right fell back in disorder, and Rosecrans, Garfield, McCook, and Crittenden, although attempting to rally retreating units, they soon joined them in the mad rush to safety. Rosecrans decided to proceed in haste to Chattanooga in order to organize his returning men and the city's defenses. And he's like, man, this is bullshit.
Jeez. He sent Garfield to Thomas with orders to take command of the forces remaining at Chickamauga and withdraw to Rossville. At McFarland's Gap, units had reformed, and General Negley met both Sheridan and Davis. Sheridan decided he would go to Thomas's aid not directly from McFarland's Gap, but via a circuitous route northwest to the Rossville Gap and then south on Lafayette Road. The provost marshal of the 14th Corps met Crittenden around the Gap and offered him the services of 1,000 men he had been able to round up during the retreat. Crittenden refused the command and continued his personal flight. At about 3 p.m., Sheridan's 1,500 men, Davis's 2,500, Negley's 2,200, and 17 men of other detached units were at or near McFarland's Gap, just 3 miles away from Horseshoe Ridge.
Uh-oh.
What's going to happen here?
Wow. However, not all of the Army of Cumberland had fled. Thomas's 4 divisions still held their lines around Kelly Field.
Look at these guys, dude.
Yeah, they ain't going nowhere. And a strong defensive position was attracting men from the right flank to Horseshoe Ridge. James Negley had been deploying artillery there on orders from Thomas to protect his position at Kelly Field. Although Negley inexplicably was facing his guns to the south instead of the northeast. Retreating
He's like, wait, I thought we're fighting the south.
Right. Retreating men, he said, I will not put my weapons at my citizens. Retreating men rallied in groups of squads and companies.
Right, squad up.
Right, and began erecting hasty breastworks from felled trees. The first regimental size unit to arrive in an organized state was 82nd Indiana, commanded by Colonel Morton Hunter. It was part of Brandon's division. Brandon himself arrived at Snodgrass Hill at about noon and began to implore his men to rally around Hunter's unit.
Look at that, dude. Brandon ain't no bitch.
Do this shit.
Units continued to arrive on Horseshoe. Look at they're all like, they're up on Horseshoe Ridge. Let's go. Units continued to arrive on Horseshoe Ridge and extended the line. Most importantly, a regiment that Brandon had requested from Negley's division, which was the 21st Ohio. This unit was armed with 5-shot Colt revolving rifles.
Oh, shit.
Without which, the right flank of the position might have been turned by Kershaw's 2nd South Carolina at 1 p.m.
All right.
Historian Stephen Woodward called the actions of the 21st Ohio one of the most epic defensive stands of the entire war.
Damn.
I don't believe it. The 535 men of the regiment expended 43,550 rounds in the engagement.
Damn.
Holy shit. Stanley's brigade, which had been driven to the area by Govid's attack, took up a position on the portion of the ridge immediately south of the Snodgrass house, where they were joined by Harker's brigade on their left.
Oh, no shit.
These guys ain't giving up, huh?
All right. This group of randomly selected units were the ones who beat back the initial assaults from Kershaw and Humphrey. Soon after, the Confederate division of Bushrod Johnson advanced against the western end of the ridge, seriously threatening the Union flank. But they reached the top of the ridge, and they found that fresh Union reinforcements had arrived. Ooh. He's like, those guys don't look like they've been in battle. Damn. Throughout the day, the sounds of battle had reached 3 miles north to McAfee's Church, where the Reserve Corps of Major General Gordon Granger was stationed.
Right, he's just sitting there. He didn't even know what's going on.
He's like, sounds like they're having fun out there, boys.
Well, he eventually lost patience and sent reinforcements south without receiving explicit orders to do so. Man. Good for you, Granger.
It's like, we're just going to sit here.
Right. The 2 brigades of Major General James Steedman's division and the brigade of Colonel Daniel McCook. As the men marched, they were harassed by forces, dismounted cavalrymen, and artillery, causing them to veer towards the west. McCook's brigade was left behind at the McDonald House to guard the rear, and Steedman's 2 brigades reached the Union lines in the rear of the Horseshoe Ridge position, just as Johnson was starting his attack. Granger sent Steedman's men into Johnson's path on the run. Said, get 'em, boys.
Several attacks and counterattacks shifted the lines back and forth as Johnson received more and more reinforcements. McNair's brigade, commanded by Colonel Coleman, Dees and Manigault's brigades from Hindman's division, but many of these men were exhausted. Vanderveer's brigade arrived from the Kelly Field line to beef up the Union defense.
Nice.
Brigadier General Patton Anderson's brigade of Hindman's division attempted to assault the hill in the gap between Johnson and Kershaw. Despite all the furious activity on Snodgrass Hill, Longstreet was exerted little direction on the battlefield, enjoying a leisurely lunch of bacon and sweet potatoes with the staff in the rear.
Oh, jeez, that's fucked. Summoned to a meeting with Bragg, Longstreet asked the Army commander for reinforcements from Polk's stalled wing, even though he had not committed his own reserve, Preston's division. Bragg was becoming distraught and told Longstreet that the battle was being lost, something Longstreet found inexplicable considering the success of his assault column.
Right. He's like, what are you talking about?
Bragg knew, however, that his success on the southern end of the battlefield was merely driving his opponents to their escape route to Chattanooga.
Exactly.
And that the opportunity to destroy the Army of Cumberland had evaporated. Seems to happen all too often with both sides. After the repeated delays in the morning's attacks, Bragg had lost confidence in his generals on the right wing, and while denying Longstreet reinforcements told him there's not a man in the right wing who has any fight in him.
Dang, Longstreet, you just took a big old drop.
He's like, fuck the Army of Virginia, Northern Virginia.
Oh, he was like, I don't know what Lee's doing to you guys out there. Holy
pussies.
shit.
No wonder why D.H. Hill wanted to get out of there.
Man, Longstreet finally deployed Preston's division, which made several attempts to assault Horseshoe Ridge. He started around 4:30 p.m. Longstreet, he later wrote that there were 25 assaults in all on Snodgrass Hill.
Wow.
But historian Glenn Tucker has written that it was really one of sustained duration.
Why do these historians all gotta be like, well, actually
it was just like ongoing for all day. At that same time, Thomas received an order from Rosecrans to take command of the army and began a general retreat. Thomas's division at Kelly Field, starting with Reynolds' division, were first to withdraw, followed by Palmer's. As the Confederates saw that Union soldiers withdrawing, they renewed their attacks, threatening to surround Johnson's and Bayard's divisions. There you go. Finally, you guys started just watching them.
Wow. Although Johnson's division managed to escape relatively unscathed, Bayard lost a significant number of men as prisoners. Thomas left Horseshoe Ridge, placing Granger in charge, but Granger departed soon thereafter, leaving no one to coordinate the withdrawal.
Oh, come on. Such bastard.
Steedman, Brannan, and Wood managed to stealthily withdraw their divisions to the north. 3 regiments that had been attached from other units, which were the 22nd Michigan, the 89th Ohio, and the 21st Ohio, were left behind without sufficient ammunition and ordered to use their bayonets.
Oh, wow.
They held their position until surrounded by Preston's division when they were forced to surrender.
Jeez, oh, Pete.
Look at how they just throw these guys to the wolves all the time, dude.
Right. Thomas withdrew the remainder of his units to positions around Ross Gap.
Rossgapville.
Thomas withdrew the remainder of his units to positions around Rossville Gap after Dock fell. His personal determination to maintain the Union position until ordered to withdraw, while his commander and peers fled, earned him the nickname of the Rock of Chickamauga, derived from a portion of a message that Garfield sent to Rosecrans, which says, Thomas is standing like a rock.
Like a rock.
They can't say Stonewall.
Right. Well, it's not a stone wall.
Right. Garfield met Thomas in Rossville that very night, and he wired Rosecrans $75,000.
10% for the big guy. That's what that was.
Garfield met Thomas in Rossville that night and wired to Rosecrans.
Western Union.
Right.
Shit.
He said, "Our men not only held their ground, but in many points drove the enemy."
Why would they be Southern?
You never know. Longstreet's Virginians have got their bellies full.
Although the troops are tired and hungry and nearly out of ammunition, he continued, I believe we can whip them tomorrow. I believe we can now crown the whole battle with victory.
Right.
He urged Rosecrans to rejoin the army and lead it, but Rosecrans, physically exhausted and psychologically a beaten man, remained in Chattanooga. Well, take him out.
Right.
President Lincoln attempted to prop up the morale of his general by telegraphing. He says, "Be of good cheer. We have unabated confidence in you and your soldiers and officers. In the main, you must be the judge as to what is to be done. If I was to... So he's saying,
Right.
do it.
Right.
If I was to suggest, I would say save your army by taking strong positions until Burnside joins you." Privately, though, Lincoln told John Hay that Rosecrans seemed confused and stunned like a duck hit on the head.
Rosecrans was like, "I'm good."
Well, so Lincoln just told him
Right.
to basically sit there
Right.
until Burnside comes.
Yeah. He's like, "Don't worry, man." The Army of Tennessee camped for the night, unaware that the Union Army had slipped from their grasp. Bragg was not able to mount the kind of pursuit that would have been necessary to cause Rosecrans significant further damage. Many of his troops had arrived hurriedly at Chickamauga by rail, without wagons to transport them. Many of the artillery horses had been injured or moited during the battle. Tennessee River was now an obstacle to the Confederates, and Bragg had no pontoon bridges to effect a crossing. So they're like, "We're screwed."
Bragg's army paused at Chickamauga to reorganize and gather equipment lost by the Union. Although Rosecrans had been able to save most of his trains, large quantities of ammo and arms had been left behind. Army of Tennessee historian Thomas Connolly, well, you got to get up and go, dude.
Yes, I guess.
Army of Tennessee historian Thomas Connolly has criticized Bragg's performance, claiming that for over 4 hours on the afternoon of September 20th, he missed several good opportunities to prevent the Union escape, such as by a pursuit up the Dry Valley Road to McFarland's
True.
Gap,
That one, yeah.
or by moving a division such as Chetham's around Polk to the north to seize the Rossville Gap or
Yeah, they needed to
McFarland's
go
Gap.
more north. That's what I was going to say earlier. And plus, they started battle 17 hours after daylight.
Right.
The battle was damaged on both sides in proportions roughly equal to the size of the armies. Union losses were 16,170.
16,000.
Yeah.
Yes.
60?
Oh, right.
16,170, which were, of those, 1,657 moited, 9,756 wounded, 4,757 captured or missing. Confederates, on the other hand, 18,454, 2,312 moited, 14,674 wounded, and 1,464 captured or missing. Man, Union could have won that one.
If they would have
They
that second day or the third day, I mean.
Right. They were the highest loss of any battle in Western theater during the war, and after Gettysburg, the second highest overall. Among the dead were Confederate generals Benjamin Hardin Helm, husband of Abraham Lincoln's sister-in-law, James Deschler, and Preston Smith. A Union general was William Little, moited.
And Confederate General John Bell Hood, who had already lost the use of his left arm from a wound at Gettysburg, was severely wounded with a bullet in his leg, requiring it to be amputated.
Oh, man, no leg and an arm. He's done.
Right. Although the Confederates were technically the victors, driving Rosecrans from the field, Bragg had not achieved his objectives of destroying Rosecrans or of restoring Confederate control of East Tennessee.
Not at all.
And the Confederate Army suffered casualties that they could ill afford at this point.
Yeah, 16,000 people wounded.
Yeah.
In one battle.
Well, 14,000 wounded,
Right.
2,300 killed.
Right. This is ridiculous, man. It seems to me that the alien of the Southern soldier was never seen after Chickamauga. He fought stoutly to the last, but after Chickamauga, with the sullenness of despair and without the enthusiasm of hope, that barren victory sealed the fate of the Confederacy. Confederate Lieutenant D.H. Hill. September.
Wow.
Well, right. That was some strong words by a loser.
Well, he'd seen it. After this battle, even though we might have won the battle, technically, we did nothing and lost all these guys for nothing, pretty much.
September 21st, 1863, General Rosecrans' army withdrew to the city of Chattanooga, took advantage of previous Confederate works to erect strong defensive positions. However, the supply lines into Chattanooga were at very risk, and the Confederates soon occupied the surrounding heights and laid siege upon the Union forces. Oh, shit.
Oh, yeah. We're going to have the battles of Chattanooga coming up. Unable to break the siege, Rosecrans was relieved of his command of the Army of Cumberland on October 19th, replaced by Thomas.
Oh, wow.
McCook and Crittenden lost their commands on September 28th as the 20th Corps and 21st Corps were consolidated in a new 4th Corps commanded by Granger. Neither officer would ever command in the field again.
Oh, wow.
On the Confederate side, Bragg began to wage a battle against the subordinates he resented for failing him in the campaign.
Oh, shit.
Hinman for his lack of action in McLemore's Cove, and Polk for his late attack on September 20th.
Yeah, that was stupid.
September 29th, Bragg suspended both officers from their commands.
Damn right. Polk. Wow, look at Polk.
Right.
Downfall of that guy.
Yeah.
Early October 1863, an attempted mutiny of Bragg's subordinates resulted in D.H. Hill being relieved from his command. Longstreet was dispatched with his corps to the Knoxville campaign against Ambrose Burnside. Hey, go fight Burnside.
Yeah.
It was seriously weakening Bragg's army at Chattanooga. Harold Knutson contends that Chickamauga was the first major Confederate effort to use the interior lines of the nation to transport troops between theaters with the aim of achieving a period of numerical superiority and taking the initiative in the hope of gaining decisive results in the West.
They were desperate, dude. They're like, let's just throw a bunch of, if we outnumber them.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, Harold Knutson, he states that the concentration the Confederates achieved at Chickamauga was an opportunity to work within the strategic perimeters of Longstreet's defensive-offensive theory.
Well, in his estimation, it was the Confederates' last realistic chance to take the tactical offense within the context of a strategic defense and destroy the Union Army of the Cumberland.
They
I don't know why that's in the red. If a major victory erasing the Union gains of the Tullahoma Campaign and a winning of the strategic initiative could be achieved in late 1863, any threat to Atlanta would be eliminated for the near future. Even more significantly, a major military reversal going into the election year of 1864 could have severely harmed President Lincoln's re-election chances, caused the possible election of Democratic nominee George McClellan, and the cessation of the Union War effort to subdue the South.
Yeah, because McClellan didn't really even want to. He's like, dude, let's just let him.
Well, all the Democrats pretty much were like, we need to end this war now.
Right. Much of the central Chickamauga battlefield is preserved by the National Park Service as part of the Chickamauga and Chattanooga National Military Park. American Battlefield Trust and its partners have acquired and preserved 141 acres of the battlefield as of mid-2023. As of mid-2023.
Right.
Ambrose Bierce's short story, Chickamauga. It was published in 1891. French filmmaker Robert Enrico adapted the story for a short film in 1962 as part of the trilogy of films, all based on Bierce's Civil War fiction. Thomas Wolfe published his story called Chickamauga in 1937. It is included in the 2004
original.
Right. Right. It is included in the 2004 edition of Thomas Wolfe's Civil War, edited by David Madden.
All right, David Madden. Right. Getting some shout out.
Right. He don't even got it underlined.
Right. Yep. That was Chickamauga, the last big, huge, devastating war of the whole war. Of course, we're going to have more.
Both sides had a chance to destroy each other and didn't do it.
Dude, this battle went right back to
Stupidity.
the first 1861 type battles where everybody was confused. Nobody was communicating with each other. And
nobody did what they were told.
Just dumb, right? Like, holy shit, these two guys, no wonder the Burns are Rosecrans by
Right.
Bragg. He tried to take it out on his subordinates, but by Bragg,
he wasn't strong enough.
Sad.
Longstreet's like,
them.
shit, you ain't no lead. You ain't no lead.
Neither's Longstreet, apparently.
Right.
Yep. There we go. Battle of Chickamauga in the books.
But Brandon and what was the other one? Brandon and
When Granger came up from his reserves,
those guys chilled. And Thomas, they all stayed around. They're like, we ain't retreating.
not until we have orders. But you couldn't have orders when the main guy was already retreating back to Chattanooga like a little bitch.
Right.
I can't deal with this anymore.
I'm just exhausted.
Stupid. Well, coming up next, we got the Battle of Blountville. in Tennessee. Then we got the Battle of Sterling's Plantation in Louisiana, Battle of Baxter Springs in Kansas, and most likely the Battle of Blue Springs in Tennessee as well for that next episode, because they're all C's and D's battles. And we got C's, D's. We don't have... Not till November do we have the Battle of Lookout Mountain and the Battle of Missionary Ridge, both A's in Tennessee.
Hey, we're sticking around in our little area here.
And
with Chickamauga.
Wow, dude. The Confederates, there's... What is there? 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20... 22, 24, 26. There's 26 battles left in 1863, and the Confederates win 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of them. So, yeah, and then 1864, they start out a little bit looking good, and then literally, shit, they got a nice little run in June, huh? Yeah, but it's not enough.
It was an even year.
Nope, because that year, 72 to 52.
Pretty good.
And then this year that we're in is 61 to 32. Confederates got whooped in 1863, dude.
Yes.
And 1864, even though it's only a few months, it's 25 to 5. They just got dominated in 1864. Everything, or 1865 just fell apart. Yeah. Just done. So we got a few battles coming up. I think pretty much for the rest of this year, 1863, every episode is going to have at least 3 battles, because I don't think even the A battles were long stories. We'll keep a long story short.
Keep a short story long.
Oh, well, that's not that long.
20 minutes.
Right. Yeah, so there we go. A couple battles coming up next week. Chickamauga, and you heard it from that quote that we read from D.H. Hill earlier. This might have been what caused the
demise.
The Union is officially Gettysburg and Vicksburg started it, and I think Chickamauga was
put the nail in the coffin.
Pretty much, they're just holding on for hope at the next year and a half. I don't know how it even lasts that long, but yep, that's us. In the meantime,
shouldn't even lasted this long,
right? Well, shit, if the Confederates could have been more organized in the first year of the war. The Union was terrible in 1861 and the beginning of 1862, pretty much.
Right.
So, in the meantime, go check out our YouTube at Bang Dang Podcast or at Bang Dang Network, and give us a like, subscription, all that stuff. This show comes out on YouTube every Friday, just like it does here on podcast version, as well as Battles of the American Civil War Way, as well as Outlaws and Gunslingers, according to Wikipedia. And now we've started adding our Lee and Corey series there every Wednesday for that as well. So if you guys interested in a mix of stuff, we got a little stuff for everybody on that channel. And we got our Dart League that we got a lot of stuff that we do on the old YouTube. So check it out. Give us a subscription if you don't want to go on YouTube and you just want to listen on your favorite podcast app. Give us a review, share.
Give us a subscription.
We'll give it. Yeah, you can give us a subscription. You don't have to watch, but yeah. So we'll see you next week or this week on. According to Wikipedia, we got the Industrial Revolution, Part 1, which pretty much we covered the mass production inventions for what? Thread, yarn, and stuff like that, and iron and screw making. So the standard screw was being able to be mass produced, so things could be interchangeable.
Right.
And then we got
getting it right around the Civil War era in that story as well.
Yeah, and then on the Mafia series on Outlaws and Gunslingers, we just covered the beginning of the Bonanno family, kind of did a little history of them before we run down individual stories on all those Bonanno guys. Most famously, Donnie Brasco infiltrated those guys. And then Lee and Corey's case this week is a weird little case about dude's trash cans keep getting knocked down, and he don't know why.
Oh, Larry Jerry.
Trying to catch who's knocking down his trash can. So that's all over on YouTube or the Bang Dang Network on wherever you get your podcasts, and we'll be back for some more Battles of the American Civil War. We are the Mother Michiganers with
Bang Dang.